You're listening to Get Tilted, only on Fantasy Now Plus.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Get Tilted podcast, your new favorite place for all things DFS. For back-to-back weeks, I'm your host, Brian Rockwood, and with me again is the ever-brilliant Tim Holstead. Welcome back, Tim. I'm happy to have you back for round 2 of our DFS combo.
Thanks, man. Happy to be back. Always enjoy talking DFS, and I'm ready to yap.
And it's truly just the most fun, just going off on several tangents like we did last week. So, ready to do it again. Uh, and ready to hopefully make some money, hit some milli makers in the process.
Here's open.
Before we get any further, I do want to say, hey, make sure to add us to your listening lineup by hitting that subscribe button. Uh, really appreciate it here. It means a lot to us if you did. Big shout out to the Finns Talk Sports Network for making this happen. Uh, Here at Fantasy Now Plus, we do have 8 shows for you coming out weekly to help you with your fantasy football needs. And don't worry, we do have written content as well for all you readers out there. So hey, stick around after the show, check out all our things, and make sure to follow us on just every social. And hey, keep in touch. So the higher ups told us we were giving away too much information. We were simply too fascinating and wanted us to reel it in just a tad. So today we're going to be adjusting our show script just a tad. Instead of going through each game individually, we're going to discuss some of our favorite plays while going, by game, and hopefully we might not talk for 2 hours straight. But hey, I didn't think that was a problem, but the the the, the folks, the white collar folks up there, they said we gotta just reel back just a little bit. But to get us going for today's episode, we have our opening question, and I think this is one that's on everyone's mind, whether it be DFS, redraft, dynasty, guillotine league. What is the trust level with these Bengals offensive weapons without Joe Burrow? Now, Joe Burrow is going to be out for 3 months, I believe. I think we're going to see him in December. And now that brings us to Jake Browning at the helm. What does Tim? What does this all mean for their weapons here?
Oh boy. Um,
Says it all, honestly.
yeah. The first thing I'll say is I think Jamar Chase is very firmly in that tier of he's never a bad play. But he's probably not ideal anymore. He could still go off for 50 in a week, but it does feel less likely with Browning at the helm. Um, Outside of Jamar Chase, I am very worried. Chase Brown has not looked good to start the year. Everything that we kind of were worried about with him is rearing its head. He's been inefficient. He's been phased out of the passing game. He just isn't really doing much for you, and I don't think that gets a ton better with Browning. He might see a few more checkdowns than he would have from Burrow, but I don't think he'll have the same amount of touchdown upside. And he is still ceding work to Samaje Perine on third down. So Chase Brown is kind of not in the mix for me until his price drops drastically. He's still priced as like a top 8 running back, and I have no interest in paying that right now. And T. Higgins, he was already the not as consistent, has injury stuff that pops up seemingly every year player of the two anyways, and now he has a major quarterback downgrade. I think he's going to be fool's gold basically all year at this point. He's going to sound shiny. You're going to be like, ooh, T. Higgins at 5,400, and you're going to click it, and then he's going to get you 8 points. And I am just going to avoid it unless unless Jake Browning truly just shows something spectacularly different than what he did the first time he filled in for Burrow 2 years ago. But he was fine, but he did not support, top 10 wide receiver seasons from both of these guys.
It's really tough to, hop into a game at midway through like Jake Browning did. He still threw for almost 250 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He did.
Now, how much that matters because it was against the Jacksonville defense, who we don't know if they're any good or not. They played Carolina the first week, and then obviously the Bengals last week. He did throw 3 interceptions.
Yep.
we might be working with like a worse version of Jameis Winston, where he might put up some yards for our receivers, but also get the ball back, or give the opponents the ball back, have them score, force more throwing, and more was a positive game script for the team
Yeah.
through. So I don't know. I think you're right and really just spot on, especially with T Higgins. He is a player already I was pretty worried about. It didn't feel like he was really coming through even with Burrow to kick off the year, and now this feels bad. It just feels bad for a lot of folks, especially that wanted to believe in this passing attack. And I do think we were all kind of right. It just is one of those years, I guess. The Bengals traded the 0-2 start for a 2-0 start without Burrow, or rather, it cost Joe Burrow for that trade. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just such a bummer, and it's such a feels bad moment that happens in fantasy. And yeah, I think and it goes without saying, tight ends are still dust, right? We can just continue to ignore Gesicki and Fant.
Oh yeah. I was barely hopeful with Burrow, and now it's a 50-50 split of grossness. So no thanks.
Woof. Hey, here's the hope in Jake Browning surprises us all with a massive. I don't even know how long he's been in the league. Years amount of time jump, and
Yep.
saves all of our seasons here. Moving on to our next topic here. I labeled it accountability check. We did a little bit of this last week, and now we get to check in on what we said on this podcast and tell you whether we hit or not. Remind you if we're still somewhat right in our process, and where we just completely missed. So last week we had some favorite stacks. Tim, you really like the Cowboys, the Rams, the Browns. I had mentioned the Patriots, the Jets, and the Jags. Which team were you most happy about? I think I know the answer.
It's honestly kind of up in the air. I think the Rams really hit in the receiver core. Devontae Adams was just peppered with end zone targets. Puka Nacua had the big play. They both had very good games. Stafford was fine. I don't believe he was like spectacular or anything. But the Cowboys, I mean, they all kind of went off. It was pretty much the game of the week. It went to overtime. There was points abound, and pretty much everyone got there. Yeah, I think those two were the plays that I felt good about, and they hit. And then the Browns happened, and boy, did they not hit. Yeah, Joe Flacco fully pumpkined. They were just bad. Like they couldn't move the ball. They couldn't score. They defense couldn't stop a runny nose. It was just a bad game all around. And the best play came from Dylan Gabriel in garbage time.
Which is both worrying because you see, as the Browns coaching staff, you see kind of ineptitude for the 3 quarters out of Joe Flacco, and you see one bright spot from Dylan Gabriel, and you think maybe the switch is here soon.
Yeah.
What that means for us, I have no idea. I do
Yeah.
not have a. Dylan Gabriel's been playing, I think, college for what? I think 18 years. He's been there forever. He's played for 5 schools.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So he's got the Bo Nix fast path of I got plenty of experience, ready to go. Just put me in the field and let's see what happens.
Yep.
But I will say that for the Browns, though they were just Swiss cheese in the air. They did stop Derrick Henry for what it's worth, and ruined a couple of my lineups. So, boo Browns. But I guess it's worth noting that your defensive front is very good.
Yeah.
That Cowboy stack though, I thought was very. So, for what's worth, picking people pretty good. I kind of. Yeah, overall, the Cowboys pretty big hit thanks to the non-existent Giants defense. Not sure if that's going to continue for the Giants since they do have several good players up front, but hey, I'm not mad about it. I'll keep attacking them probably until we figure out they're good or not.
Yep.
On my end, I had the Patriots as Jags. I think I went about like 0.5 out of 3. The Jets completely turned into the Jets, man. They they went right back to form. They got all of us very excited and did nothing against the Bills. So we can take that as a note. The Bills defense is probably pretty solid. I think the Baltimore offense is that good, and I think the Steelers defense is that bad to allow the Jets to kind of run all over them.
Yep.
The Jags, man, it was okay until it wasn't. Brian Thomas Jr. just disappeared. Call it the yips, call it the wrist injury or what, but 12 targets, only 4 catches. That won't do it for us there. Then the Pats, really just Drake May.
Yeah.
A lot of folks were very excited about Kayshon Boutte, us included. 1 catch, 1 touchdown. So, hey, you like those odds though? 100% touchdown catch rate in a game. I think. And we also talked about some good chalk as well last week.
Yes.
Tim, you had CMC. Love it. Perfect. Remains good chalk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it seemed not dicey, but for some reason, I remember looking at his score for a while and thinking he's a snowflake still. I don't know. He seems ice cold. What's going on here?
Yeah, the Saints just like through 2 games, their offense has been solid and they just like eat clock so far. Like it makes sense. It is Kellen Moore. Like that is pretty much how the Eagles ran their offense. They just had Saquon to sometimes turn their 18 play drives into a 2 play drive because he accidentally broke it for 80 yards. But like it's everything is just dink and dunk and underneath passing and getting the 3rd down and converting 3rd downs at a good clip. So like I think the Saints are a weird team where their defense is bad and you can score on them, but you might not have a ton of plays to do so. So yeah, it's kind of back-to-back weeks of CMC was fine. He looked a bit more explosive than in week 1 to me. He scored the touchdown finally, and he still is getting peppered with targets. So until that changes, I think he's always worth his price. He's now finally the most expensive running back in week 3, but I still think he's worth it.
I'm right there with you. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. I had Jason as good chalk. He had another 100-yard game. I'm surprised he was only wide receiver 19 in half PPR, and I think maybe a little higher in full. I guess we just really need that touchdown to break through, huh?
Yeah. And yeah, in DraftKings, it's all about big plays and hitting the bonuses and whatnot, and that's not overly his game. He can do it, but I imagine he's going to be very much like a target monster, Garrett Wilson type of season of just he's going to get 30+% of the target share, and you always want to pay for that regardless of price for the most part.
Definitely, and he ended up being wide receiver 13 in full PPR, which DraftKings is a full PPR format. So very good. unfortunately just not enough to really elevate you to the level you need to get to kind of win the whole thing most
Yeah.
often.
But he was pretty cheap last week, so I think at his price point you would take a wide receiver 13 for what was it, 6,500 or something like that.
Yeah, definitely something manageable and something you can easily pair with another guy that could pop up.
Yep.
All right, I think that's it for the past. It's time for us to move on to the future. Just as a reminder, we're not going to cover the primetime games or the showdown slates. So that means that's Miami and Buffalo on Thursday, Kansas City and New York Giants on Sunday night, and the Detroit Lions and Baltimore Ravens on Monday. So those players we're not talking about today. Maybe a new show, we'll see. But we'll work on today's show first.
Yep.
So in our new format, our new show schedule, we're going to talk about games we want to attack. So these are games that we absolutely want players a part of. We think these players are going to crush, and as if we can get a stack in here, that's going to be what we're going to aim to do. So, Tim, let's hear your first game. You really want to get a part of.
I Anytime there's NFC South opponents against each other, I'm interested. Um, just none of the teams have good defenses basically ever. They still don't really seem to this year. And the Falcons against Carolina, I I just think that neither defense is really going to be able to stop either offense. And you know, Atlanta is great because it's concentrated. Um, you know to play Bijan. You know to play Drake London, even if it hasn't gotten there yet. Um, you know that the wide receiver two is pretty much only Darnell Mooney, and you can sprinkle in Kyle Pitts if you want to. He's lining up more as a receiver this year. He's been on the field more. He's been running more routes. Again, it's not like fully translating into results, but from a playing time and target perspective, it is there, and he is cheap. So for Carolina, it's Bryce Young is 5,000 this week. He is one of the cheapest quarterbacks in the slate, and he still runs the ball. He has almost 50 rushing yards on the year through 2 weeks. He hasn't gotten in the end zone yet, but he hasn't had the opportunity. And I just don't think the Falcons' secondary is good enough to make me worry enough about Bryce Young. It was different when he was facing, you know, the Cardinals last week, and they were still able to move the ball at the end of the game. Hunter Renfro is back for some reason, but
A
he
little
scored.
reliable.
Oh yeah, he scored 2 touchdowns though. Tet looks like the prince that was promised. He just hasn't scored a touchdown yet, and the Panthers have had to kind of play a weird offense because they've basically been trailing for every second of both games. And yeah, I like to target these types of games, the in division games with bad defenses, and Bryce Young usually has 3 or 4 weeks every year where he just goes for 30, and you were like, oh, okay.
There's something magical about the garbage time stats, and Bryce Young so far is looking a little bit like our old man Blake Bortles,
Yeah.
the trash man himself. We'll see if that keeps happening. We'll see if they actually are competitive enough to avoid the garbage time stat padding. But I love this game. I'm with you there. I do think T Mac is due. I think he's due for a touchdown this week.
Yep.
A game I really like, and I shouldn't. It's very sugary, and it's just it's not good for my health. But the Tampa Bay Bucks versus the New York Jets. This has got just chaos written all over it. You know, Justin Fields I believe, is out this week with the concussion.
Yep.
Tyrod Taylor's in. This is a good thing for Garrett Wilson. I do think that the pass catchers, I guess solely Garrett Wilson, maybe Mason Taylor if you're feeling really frisky. I do think they are in line for a much better time than they were with Justin Fields. I think Brees Hall probably has a little more to work with, whether it be the Bucks have to respect the passing game a little more, so they can't just keep, you know, bringing the house. Then on the other side, it's Bucky Irving, it's Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka. Watch his health, but he's just been a stud first couple weeks out of the gate. I think there's just a lot to like here, and I'm not really convinced either defense is really that talented. I think the Tampa Bay front is usually fine with Vita Vea, but they they kind of disappear sometimes. I'll be honest, and it's great for fantasy, great for DFS. It's gotta be awful to watch as a Tampa Bay fan.
Yeah, I fully agree. Couple notes on the Buccaneers. They lost Kalijah Cansey, their young upstart defensive tackle in the middle next to Vea. He is, I believe, a torn pectoral muscle, so
Oh, that is right.
that weakens their defensive line quite a bit. And also, I don't think it matters this week, but Chris Godwin has practiced 2 days in a row on a limited capacity.
That's a
So,
lot better than not practicing. That's actually
yeah,
very exciting. Uh, Again, bad for our Egbuka owners, but really great for the Bucks offense as a whole.
yeah. I don't think he'll play this week, and I don't know if Igbuka is going to play this week. It kind of sounds like he won't, which, if true, makes Mike Evans like the chalk of all chalk, but also could open up some of the tertiary options, the Sterling Shepard, the I don't even Ryan Miller. Didn't he catch a touchdown
Oh,
last
he
week?
did. He did catch a touchdown last week.
Yeah, like these guys are going to be. I haven't even looked, but I'm going to guess somewhere in the 3,000 to 2,500 salary range for the most part. Like any one of them is a perfectly fine, like very uber cheap dart throw in a bigger contest like the Millie Maker.
And we can even look towards Kate Otten for sure.
Yeah,
In these type of uh, you know game situations where it's just Mike Evans and no one else, Baker really leans on Kate Otten to be that short area target guy. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Bucky Irving just line up as a wideout and just let Rashad White play on the inside next to Baker.
yeah.
Really
Totally.
shake up the whole offense. Look like that.
Yep. I think Bucky. Honestly, the main thing is just I think the Jets defense is atrocious. Like back to back weeks giving up 40 points, I believe. I don't remember if the Steelers got quite that high, but like this is a defensive head coach and their defense is atrocious, but also really talented on paper. So I'm kind of confused what's going on with them, but through 2 weeks, you want to play your players against them. So I think, yeah, and I agree on the Jets side of like it's going to be Brees, it's going to be Garrett Wilson. I think it's going to be Mason Taylor. We'll see if Josh Reynolds plays or not. He's been missing, but yeah, I think there's a very good environment there to score a lot of fantasy points, and people might, for the most part, be looking at it and say, "Ew, gross." So take that to advantage.
Our last game here, we both agree here that's going to be a doozy of a game. The Dallas Cowboys, the Chicago Bears, they're facing off, and I can only imagine this game might easily hit the over.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, their defense is just they don't look like they can stop people. It's been kind of a common theme so far this year of like a lot of defenses that we were expecting to be like good to average have just not been. Like, the Cowboys on paper have multiple good corners. They don't have a pass rush anymore, but, you know, and they have just been bleeding points. And the Bears are supposed to have a lot of depth and young talent, and they've just been bleeding points. And I think that continues. Who to play on the Bears side is going to be the real fun question to ask. because there's like 8 options and they all have conceivable paths to be the person. But for the Cowboys, I think it's very simple. It's Dak, it's CD, it's Pickens, and unfortunately, it's Javonte, but also Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson, I believe, is third in the NFL for targets for tight end. Um, he's quietly just getting a bunch of catches and targets.
Before he got injured last year, this is kind of what his trajectory was looking like, Jake Ferguson. He
Yeah,
just seemed like a complete target hog. He's just seemingly always open. He had 9 catches last week. He had 12 targets. He, you know, you love that. Like it's hard to ignore that. And against the Bears, who I don't really know if they're even fielding 11 guys on any given play, I think that's an absolute slam for again, like if you found a way to just start 5 players from the Cowboys, I wouldn't blame you for it. I think something like that might just happen. You can only
yeah,
hope that Caleb Williams doesn't implode and doesn't just absolutely boat raced by the Cowboys and they actually kind of catch up with them.
yeah,
I think you gotta just kind of ride the hot hand. I think with the Bears, Adunze slowly but surely becoming the main target. I was really sad about the opening weekend that he had, I think, maybe 2 catches,
yeah,
and then blows up last week. They were down 50-20, so they
yeah,
they had to keep throwing the ball. I I do love this game. I think there's a lot to like a lot. Like just Javonte Williams as a whole has completely made me the fool, and I'm now back in on Javonte
yeah,
Williams, and I think um, they're gonna continue to have success. I think this young O line. I think we talked about this last week. The young O line is doing
yeah,
great. They're doing great things, and I think they're gonna push around this Chicago front. So
yep,
scoop them
yeah,
up. Take your guesses on who's gonna score the touchdown, but I think you have pretty good odds on getting a good performance from most of the guys in this game. Honestly, on both sides.
yep.
Okay, so next up we have our top priced up plays. These are plays that we like a lot, even if they are pricey. Just players we think are worth it, right? They are just worth the price tag, and you should just throw them in your lineup anyway because you're not going to be disappointed. Um, Tim, you want to kick us off here?
Absolutely. Um, I'm gonna go gross. I think Jalen Hurts is a good play at 6,800. I do. Um, I know that the passing volume has not been there yet. I kind of think it will have to be there this week. They face the Rams. I don't think their defense is that good to be able to just completely shut down a Sean McVay Rams offense. They will probably cause some turmoil in that backfield. They will probably get to Stafford, but I think Stafford can push them. Weird as it is to say, I don't think the Chiefs could push them. And the Cowboys could kind of push them, but they also just couldn't stop anything on on defense. So Hurts didn't really have to care or try in that game. It was just here's Saquon, here's a tush push. But that's the thesis of the play is he's he's penciled in for at least one rushing touchdown basically every week. If he hits on 2 to 3 passing touchdowns, or if he gets a second rushing touchdown, you've got a top 3 quarterback. And there's no one else. None of the other elite quarterbacks are guaranteed to be on the slate. Jaden Daniels is still questionable. It kind of sounds like they're going to start Mariota, but we don't have official word yet. But even if he does play, I kind of doubt with a bum knee that he's going to be effective in the way of scoring fantasy points. His rushing will probably be limited. So I think Hertz is the only one of the elite 5 that's left standing at this point or on the slate. I think he's worth paying up for, especially for $200 more than Baker. Like, I think he's got a much higher ceiling than Baker.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have Baker as one of my top priced up plays, and you know I'm worried because Baker did have that weird knee injury at the end of the game, and which was somehow also not an injury because he got up and immediately trashed on CJ
It's,
Gardner Johnson.
the trash
Uh,
talking just healed everything wrong with his
it,
knee immediately.
and it's just like I guess I don't really know how real that is, but it may hamper his rushing ability a little bit, Baker. But like we talked about just moments ago, I think that Jets defense is just awful.
Yeah, I
So
think he's been full practice all week, if I am remembering correctly. So I think he's fine.
something about it. How do you not love Baker Mayfield? God.
Yeah,
Anyway,
he's so fun to watch. But
uh,
yeah, like even me saying Hertz has a higher ceiling, but Baker, he can just throw for 404 on bad defenses. He needs to get pushed to do it, but there's there's an outside chance. And again, like I I like Hurts' upside the most, but I also like Baker's upside more than most other quarterbacks besides Hurts on this slate. So I think that's a perfectly good call as well. Let's
for a
see.
running back, I guess we'll just stick with this game again. You have Bucky Irving as one of your favorite priced up plays, and I think you're once again hitting the nail on the head. I think this is an actual slam dunk.
Yeah, I his usage has been fantastic. He will be a little sour for people because he didn't get the late game rushing touchdown. It went to Rashad White, but with the Igbuka injury, with the Godwin still probably not playing, he'll probably get a few more targets. Like you said, he might line up in the slot or as a receiver a bit more, and I don't think the Jets can stop the run. So I'm happy to play him. He's, I want to say, not even a top 5 running back from a price perspective. I think he's like 6th or 7th. So happy to take any small discount I can get on someone who I think can be the RB1 if things break his way this week.
Yeah, and look no further than just his film last week. He was violent on a lot of runs.
Yeah.
He looked shifty. He looked great. I think he is just I don't want to say, under the radar because he's very good and we all know how good he is. And yet, like you said, he's ranked 6th. You know, he's outside the top 5 of pricing. We'll see if that gets, you know, we'll see if it bounces up after this week because I feel like a big week is in store. Then a price correction might be ahead for week 4.
Yeah.
I have Bijan Robinson. It is Bijan, not Bijan. Bijan Robinson, 7,900, and yeah, against this Carolina defense, we're in air quotes. Yeah, I think I think they're gonna do the same exact thing they did against the Vikings. You know, first and 10, Bijan 6 yards. Second and 4, Bijan 6 yards. Like I think it's just gonna be pound the rock, just get Bijan going. Spell him with Tyler Algier for a little bit, but that's fine because Bijan catches 4 or 5 balls, and now we're golden, right? So I think he's just one of the most obvious top price plays that you're gonna love and you'll be happy with.
Yep. He's got a relatively similar workload to Christian McCaffrey. He's younger. He's probably more athletic at this point, and he's in a similar spot where you have a quarterback that's not the best. In Penix's case, he's just a bit more inexperienced compared to Mac Jones, and then they have basically one other target besides Bijan and besides McCaffrey. So I think it's a very strong play.
And tell me about Trey McBride because this Cardinals offense looked good and then didn't look good last week.
It's tough being a fan of this team, but they did exactly what I said they were going to do. They played down to their competition. They got out to a 10-point lead in the first 4 minutes of the game. They were up big at halftime, and then they just stopped trying to score points, and they were just there to attempt to kill clock and then do something cute on third down and then punt every single drive. But Trey McBride is still getting massive target volume. Again, he's so far been allergic to the end zone, but the reality is that he's getting there anyways. And he pretty much always gets there. He very rarely busts. He very rarely is even in the middle of the scoring pack. He's pretty much always a top 5 tight end, and he's the only healthy top 5 tight end that we feel fully confident about. Bowers doesn't seem himself with this injury. He's playing, but we don't really know how limited his upside is. We just learned today that Tucker Kraft injured his knee in practice. Pour one out.
Broke my heart.
Yeah, it's supposedly not season ending, so that's something, but he is unfortunately off the menu, and Kittle's still on IR. So for me, McBride is worth paying up for because there's really no one else that you can consistently say, this guy could challenge for the tight end 1 overall any given week who's healthy anyways.
Yeah, I think McBride is going to continue to be just the dude. I think, the disappointment of Marvin Harrison Jr. is pretty real at this point, and I begin to worry a lot about how, if McBride going to continue just to be the dude, and I think we all think that's the case, and how is that good for the whole offense? I don't know. It's going to be tricky as we see in the next few weeks to see what's reality. I think for the Cardinals. My last top priced play, JSN. I'm just hooked. I just think what this offense does is weird and totally great for JSN. They don't know what they're doing in the backfield. The Seattle Seahawks. They don't know if it's going to be Ken Walker. I guess it's probably going to be Ken Walker this week. Zach Charbonnet fighting a foot injury. But Sam Darnold locks in on one dude and one dude only, and that is Jackson Smith and Njigba. And I think it's going to continue this way until the defenses can prove they can stop it. Cooper Kupp did get a little involved last week. Torrey Horton scored the touchdown, but it's all JSN.
Yeah, full agree. He is a target monster. He, has just not had touchdown luck, and all you need is touchdown luck, and your good plays on paper can become great plays that grow your bank account. And I think he's the perfect candidate for that.
Alrighty. Up next, we have our top chalk. Just heavily owned players that are most likely going to be, a top percentage rostered that we just like anyway. We think it's going to be worthwhile to join the crowd. I had written down Tucker Kraft earlier today, and then the practice report came out. Had to do a little strike through on that one because it's not worth it anymore. I don't think it's, like you said, season ending. But man, does it put a pause that I don't know if I want to gamble this late in the week. Any knee injury is not great.
Yeah.
So instead, I have the classics, just CeeDee Lamb. No discussion really needed. And then Christian McCaffrey. See above. Just 2 dudes that we know exactly who they are. A lot of volume, a lot of snaps, just bona fide studs in DFS. And I think, again, just their matchups this week, I think are great.
Yep. I mean, yeah. As far as touches, they're going to get them in bunches, and that's really all you can ask for in chalk. there's certainly cheaper chalk that will be there, but as far as the guys that you're paying up for that have the volume, I don't think there's a better combo than those two.
Tim, who are you looking at?
Well, I don't think he was chalk until a few hours ago, but I think he'll probably become the new tight end chalk now. I think it's Tyler Warren at 4,400. He has gotten good target volume. He's been very involved, and the Colts are just good? Question mark. At least they seem to be. They're basically scoring on pretty much every drive they run, and there's not really a consensus like fantastic cheap pick at tight end this week. Maybe Luke Musgrave with Tucker Kraft going down, but I don't think he really has the profile to step in and just be Tucker Kraft from a target perspective. So for me, I'd rather go with kind of the mid-range tight end that I know has high upside and has a decent floor. And he has a much better matchup than a lot of other tight ends this week. So Tyler Warren is one. My other is Drake London at 6K. I get it. It's has not worked out the first 2 weeks, but he's still getting peppered with targets. He didn't in week 2, but as you said, they basically just ran the ball all game and begged the Vikings to force them to stop doing it, and they didn't. But London was one catch away in week 1 from having a monster game. He just dropped it in the end zone and got injured. He wasn't fully healthy last week. He seems to be on a much better track this week. And as we said before, the Panthers defense is bad. And the amount of targets that London is pretty much guaranteed for at 6,000 is, I think, something that a lot of people are going to turn to. He's about 1,000 underpriced, in my opinion, just for the upside that he offers. And I don't really see a reason to go away from that.
And for what it's worth, London was looking like it was in line for a solid game before he fumbled that one catch. I think that fumble kind of killed any of the excitement that offense may have had about even passing the ball. They just said, "Forget it. Let's just keep just running because it's working," and just make London kind of more of a decoy because I don't really know if he was still 100%. Love those picks though. I love Tyler Warren. I do think he's going to be close towards that third year in a row rookie tight end breakout. So here's the hope in that it comes to fruition.
Yep.
Indiana Jones at center or at behind center. All right, let's talk some value. I think Juwan Johnson is probably the most underpriced tight end we have right now. Juwan Johnson, 3,900. He is the tight end 3 on the year in scoring. He is very much a favorite target of Spencer Rattler behind Chris Olave. He has 13 receptions for 125 yards between 2 weeks, and the touchdown that was amazing last week. I think he's just awesome. I think it's just I guess unsung type of player, but he's just great, and I think it's going to be very great for us as DFS players to find a value that is going to get 7-8 targets a game. I also have Jalen Warren as a value at 5,500. The Patriots linebackers are bad at covering the running backs out of the backfield. They're the two main guys, Spillane and Christian Ellis. They're fourth and third worst at covering in the running backs. We saw that with Devon Achane getting a massive game last week and almost willed the Dolphins to a comeback victory in that one. I think Jalen Warren, who's getting more targets as the weeks go on, I think he's another guy you're really going to like at that value. And then just like every other week, give me Drake May. He continues to be so cheap at 5,300. He's improving in the past 2 weeks. He did run in the end zone last week, making us, score even better. I think he is going to crush the Steelers. I think the game's gonna be weirdly close, just because it's just early, and Aaron Rodgers can do anything they wants to, especially against this patchwork defense for the Pats. I do think this one's gonna be back and forth, but I like Drake May a lot.
Yeah.
What you got for us, Tim? Who are your discounted dudes?
Well, I have a full article coming out on this later this week. So check fantasynowplus.com for the full breakdown on everything. But I'll give you a few teases and someone who didn't even make my article for right now. My first guy that again, we've talked about it a lot already, but I think Bryce Young at 5K is a lot of upside for the amount of money that you can save. Like I said, he's got the rushing floor. He hasn't even rushed for a touchdown yet. He hasn't statistically been that bad. I mean, he has more touchdowns than interceptions. He's not turning the ball over as much as we would have expected for how badly the team finished the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I think he's a good blend of upside, and he's not Carson Wentz, which is always a plus. My second player, especially now, is Dontavian Wicks of the Green Bay Packers for 3,700. They are now down Jaden Reed. They are probably down Tucker Kraft this week. It is Matthew Golden, it is Romeo Doubs, and it's Dontavian Wicks. And from a talent perspective, I still think Wicks is their most talented wide receiver. It's just playing the game of, will he actually catch the football when it's thrown to him? He has been better in his limited snaps this year as far as like actually maintaining the catch and not dropping it. And he still gets open. He still has the size speed that you're looking for. And Matthew Golden just hasn't done anything yet. And that could easily change. But at 3,700, I know that Wicks is probably going to be somewhere in that top 3 for targets. And against a Browns team that will probably get walloped on by the Packers, I want to take that shot for that price and see if he's the guy that ends up getting 6 catches for 100 and a touchdown or not. Because I think at least one of these Packers receivers will probably get somewhere around that line. It's just kind of a coin flip as to who it's going to be. My last guy is Kayshon Boutte. I know he only had 1 target last week. It was for a touchdown, but he was very clearly Drake May's favorite target in week 1. Anytime May was in trouble, anytime May had time to throw, he was looking for Kayshon Boutte, and he was connecting with Kayshon Boutte. And at 4,600, I want to say 300 less than Stephon Diggs. I think he just offers more upside, more athleticism for what you're looking for a cheap spike week type of player. We know that he has red zone potential. So I think he's a decent shot if you want, a lower priced wide receiver without going full into the 3,000s.
Yeah, I definitely agree on Dontavian Wicks. I think he is just a player who got a really bad rap last year because of the drops. Still led the team in targets. Still looks like one of the guys they really want to get involved. So now that the equation has changed a little bit without Tucker Kraft, I do agree there. I like him a lot. So lightning round. Let's talk just real quick our top defensive plays. Tim, who are your main 3?
It's kind of, I don't have a great cheap defense this week. For me, it's the Packers as the most expensive defense feels like they should be and most likely will pay off on that against Joe Flacco and the Browns. The Seahawks, they're just a really good defense. They've been giving fits to everyone they faced so far, and I think that just continues. And then I'm not as convicted in this one. I'm going to be honest. If I had to pick someone cheap, I would probably go with the Patriots. I still don't believe that much in Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith as a tandem. I think they got lucky against the Jets and then they faced the Seahawks and it kind of regressed back to what I was more so expecting from them. They're going to probably get a lot of sacks because Rodgers can't move whatsoever in the pocket and he doesn't check the ball down still. He still thinks he can escape and then he just doesn't escape. So you're probably not going to get a pick, but I think you're going to get 3 to 4 sacks and you're probably not going to give up more than 20, 21 points at max unless Rodgers just has a really good day. But Christian Gonzalez is back. Patriots are at home. They're going to want to play better defensively than they have so far. And I think this is a decent opportunity for that to occur.
And for what it's worth, they did score on special teams last
Yeah.
week. They did have a kickoff return touchdown. So
Yep.
anything's possible, right? Any way you get a point, you never know.
Yep. And Pittsburgh let up a defensive touchdown as well on special teams because Caleb Johnson forgot the rules of football.
Who who hasn't done that, huh? Who hasn't brain farted in the most important part of your job?
Yep.
And then proceed to just get benched for the rest of the game.
Yep.
I love Green Bay as well. The other defense I want to note is the Atlanta Falcons. They really gave it to the Minnesota Vikings last week. I think this pass rush is pretty dang good. I think the missing pieces on that Carolina offense are going to be felt. I think you'll see a lot of pressure coming into Bryce Young, and the start of that Cardinals game, he threw a pick. I think it threw a pick six, and then he fumbled, or was a fumble six, and then just a random pick. Regardless, 2 early turnovers from the Panthers. I think we see that again with the Falcons, and I think you just throw them in there. I think just attacking that Carolina offense is good enough if you need a defensive play.
That's fair.
All right, let's talk about fades. For myself, just the Jaguars. I'm going to take a big old step back. I was big on them on week 1. Still big on them week 2. I am out on week 3. I'm scared about Brian Thomas Jr. The vibe is bad. I think Trevor Lawrence is still learning the scheme for Liam Cohen's offense. I think there's still not a lot to love outside of the running backs. I think Etienne and Bayshall are probably fine. Like, if you're really taking a dart throw, like in a Millie Maker, like, yeah, I guess you could throw Tootin in there, but I don't really recommend a lot of the Jaguars this week. My other big fave is Josh Jacobs, shockingly enough. This Cleveland front stopped Derrick Henry, kept him under 30 yards of offense, or under 30 yards of rushing. I think it's real. I think Mason Graham, Myles Garrett, I think they're legit, and I don't think the Packers really need to try and jam the ball up the middle when they can just slice and dice through the air.
Yeah, totally agree.
How about yourself?
For me, we talked about it to open the show. I'm out on the Bengals this week, especially matched up against the Vikings with another backup quarterback. I think this could just be a stinker of a game. I would not be surprised at all if the final score when we go into Monday is 13-17. I couldn't tell you who wins that, but that's the type of game that I kind of think is possible. It's probably not the most probable, but I don't see how multiple Bengals get there. I think it's if anyone gets there, it's probably one of Chase or Higgins. And Chase is still the most expensive receiver on the slate, and I don't really know if I want to pay that to find out if he gets there or not. Um, Browning is more expensive than people like Bryce Young, and that's not something I'm interested in. Chase Brown is still expensive. T. Higgins is still expensive. I'm just not interested in Bengals this week. I'd rather they drop in price after a relatively meh game for next week before I start thinking about them again. And then I'm just kind of out on Kyler Murray. He's not hitting his receivers for touchdowns that often. He just can't get on the same page with Marvin Harrison. He's never been able to get Trey McBride in the end zone for the most part. It pretty much always is either a couple random ones to like Michael Wilson and Elijah Higgins, or it's James Conner rushing it, or occasionally you still get Kyler with the red zone scramble, but he's just not running that much. It's a little better than last year, but it's nothing like he was in his prime. And he's not a good enough passer to really make up for that. This is not Jaden Daniels where you take away his legs and he's still a top 5 to 10 passer. Kyler just can't hit certain parts of the field, and he makes very bad decisions under pressure still. And I just don't really want to have anything to do with him, especially in a game against the 49ers, who seem to always throw fits against Kyler. He just doesn't do well in division. So I'm out on him.
It's heartbreaking to see Kyler Murray not be the fantasy cheat code we want him to be. He has all the tools. He just feels like he's mentally not there in terms of making the right decision, finding the right guy, and it's just tough because it could be so much more.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I'm faded. I've been on the fade Kyler Murray train since the beginning of the season, so it feels I feel vindicated that you're alongside me here on this big fade.
As a Cardinals fan, I've defended Kyler for basically from the get-go. I thought people were making the short jokes and the Call of Duty jokes kind of without really having substance to back them up, but he legitimately cannot see over his offensive line when it comes to the middle of the field. Like you can prove it on tape. There's a reason that Trey McBride struggles with touchdowns, and it's because in the red zone it gets too condensed and there's too much going on, and he can't see. He's always looking to the sidelines. He is never, ever, ever looking at the middle of the field. And when he does, he misses. I'm just kind of done dealing with that, both as a fan and for fantasy.
It's tough. It's a bad beat when everything we think about in terms of height ends up being real, right?
Yep.
Okay. Last but not least, our favorite stack of the week. We have the same stack, so we'll start with the different one. I'll go with the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams, Roma Denze. I think Colson Loveland gets there. I think we saw the Cowboys struggle covering Dallas Goedert in week 1. Maybe they start thinking, hey, we should use the 9th overall pick a little bit more in our offense. I don't know if that's crazy to say. I don't know if that's really mind breaking, but hey, I'm just saying.
I don't know what Ben Johnson's doing. I really don't. Like, not playing Colston Loveland, not playing Luther Burden, running DJ Moore as a running back. Like,
He's cooking. That's what it is. I don't think he's allowed to cook until he figures out something
it's
more
starting to
simple.
look that way because one quick L that I'll recant is I was out on the Lions last week. Boy, was that wrong. boy, was that just the fact the Packers defense is great and not the fact the Lions offense is bad. They are very much not bad. So I don't know about Ben Johnson,
Yeah,
but I
it
do
also
like the
showed.
fact.
Yeah, it also showed the Lions don't need him. Didn't need
Yeah.
them to score a bunch of points.
Yep.
They have just really good dudes over there.
My stack that we don't share is the Buccaneers. I think whether or not Igbuka plays, I think I still believe this. I think Mike Evans is a fantastic play against a bad Jets defense. As you said, when the receiving options go down, Baker likes to turn to Kate Otten. I think he's a good play if Igbuka plays, and possibly a must play if he doesn't. He's not expensive at all. And I think you can take your shot on the tertiary pieces, on the Sterling Shepherds, whoever you think could be the wide receiver 2 on this team if Igbuka sits. And if Igbuka plays, I think he's still relatively well priced. With the injury designation, I might be a little more hesitant on him, but I also don't think that it's a bad idea to go after someone that is scoring touchdowns on like 50% of his receptions so far this year. So yeah, I'm all in on the Bucks. I think they're going to destroy the Jets.
Music to my ears as a Patriots fan. Anytime we can say destroy the Jets, I'm all in. Sign me up.
You've been happy for 20 years.
uh yeah, it's been rough over there for the Jette Jets.
Yep.
Uh Finally, our shared stack. It's them Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
We've talked about it a lot tonight. I think they are primed and ready to go to lay the beat down on the Bears. Not much
Yep.
else to it, to be honest.
Yeah. Until proven otherwise, I think Javonte is playable and possibly even like preferable to play because he's still cheap. We talked about the receivers. Jake Ferguson is third in targets at the tight end position. He's cheap. And CD and Pickens both have slate breaking potential. And if they do that, then you're gonna want to have Dak with them. So I think it's my favorite stack, and probably your favorite stack. So yeah, wheels up for Dallas.
Yeah, very excited, especially trying to see if I can get some George Pickens going this week as well.
Yep.
If the price allows it, I'd love to have Dak, CD, and George. May have to spend down somewhere else. But hey, that's a problem for future me. That's it. We are all set for today's episode of Get Tilted. Tim, any last questions, comments, concerns you have for us, for our dear listeners?
I mean, I really don't want to add an extra 20 minutes to this, but like this has been a very strange year so far for running backs. There has been absolutely no savings available at that position any of the weeks. You're just not getting points with any of these fringe guys at all. Like the best weeks you've kind of gotten is Cam Scattaboo and Bashal Tootin last week, and they didn't break anything. Like Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt has done basically nothing through 2 weeks. He's still cheap this week. He's still interesting, but you basically have always had to pay up for running back so far, and the only way that you can get in a lineup that hits is hitting on these dart throw receivers in the 4 to 3,000 range, and that's not the most fun way to play because they're random for a reason. And I wonder how long this lasts until we get someone who's truly mispriced and can truly like break the slate without being 6,500.
We're just looking for that next Jonas Gray. Who is the random guy? I hey, I know they're not on the slate, but I saw a couple Reddit posts about Brashard Smith. Who knows? Maybe maybe he's the next one. We love our 7th round Kansas City running back. So
Yep.
hey, maybe this is the one. This time for sure. but we'll keep an eye out on our those running backs because it's a great point, and you can feel it, in a lot of early games of just regular redraft as well.
Yep.
If it's not the main running back one on a team, you're probably not getting points there.
Yep.
Fingers crossed it changes this week.
We'll see.
Alrighty. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please add us to your queue. Subscribe on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Blue Sky. And always check in on the website itself, fantasynowplus.com. We always got stuff coming out for y'all to improve your fantasy football knowledge, to help you win money in DFS and getting the best plays in Underdog. So thanks again for tuning in. I've been Brian, this has been Tim, and this has been Get Tilted. Till next week, have a great one.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week for more ways to win your league.